All right. Howdy, folks. Hey, look at that. My alarm just went off. All right. Welcome to a kind of a surprise edition of Black Swan Revelations. I was not really planning on doing a live stream today, but I just felt like I needed to do this one here. And I was going to do it at 12, but I'm going to go see a movie with my son. I'm going to go see Dune, and we're going to go check it out. It's about 2:45 in a couple of hours, 2-3 hours from now. So I got to take off pretty soon. But I really felt this is something that I need to share. And this could come across as a little bit conceited. And I hope you'll see my heart behind this. In the past 2 years, I've read the Bible almost 12 times. And I've read the book of Romans probably 40, 50 times. And I realized that Paul cracked the code when it came to the flesh. So this isn't me coming up with some idea on how to deal with the flesh. This is Paul, who was revealed to by Jesus Christ, downloading information to Paul, and Paul got it. And then Paul spent time through tribulations and sufferings and everything to get it down on paper for us so that we can understand how to deal with the flesh. And I got it. And I understand. I get it. I won't say 100%, but boy, oh boy, once you get this, once you understand how to crack the code on dealing with the flesh, boy, oh boy, your whole world opens up to you. I'm telling you, your life will change. I'm telling you this. So this is why I say, like, I don't want it to come across like I'm bragging. Oh, hey, look at this. I found something and I'm the only one on the planet that knows this. I think there are other people that know this, but perhaps they're not sharing it. I don't know. I feel like I'm in the 1 percentile right now when it comes to this kind of thing. I watch other videos on what I'm about to show you, and I'm like, that's not it. I look at someone else, I'm going, that's not it. That's not it. Not even close. Far off. Nope. Didn't get it. Don't understand. And then I'm like, am I being conceited? Am I being arrogant? What's going on? Lord, like, help me with this. Because why am I only seeing this? Why does it feel like it? Now, I want my audience, if you're watching this video, I want you to be able to say, I've seen this stuff before. I've seen this. Shane, you're not alone on this. I've seen this. This guy, Exhibit A, Dr. So-and-so talks about this, or this guy talks about this, or whatever it is. And then that helps me have a little bit of a form of sanity, if you will, because it feels like I can't find this stuff anywhere. I can't find this. So this is why I want to present this. And then it's up to you to go, you know what, Shane? You are totally out to lunch. You are nutso. You are crazy. You're loony bins. And you need to stop. Something like that. Give me a comment. Let me know. But if you think I'm onto something, I can go levels deep. I can go way deeper than what I'm about to share here. So, that being said, let me know. Keep me posted. Keep me on the straight and narrow. Let me know, because sometimes you can get a little bit puffed up. You can get to the point where you're like, oh, I know this. No one else knows this. And I don't want to come across that way. But it kind of feels like I'm onto something, and people, either they're not sharing it, or I haven't found the right resource to tap into what they're sharing. And then it's like, oh, it's all over the place. I haven't found that yet. So, all right. So what are we talking about here? Let's Let's jump to this. So I call this Swan's path because this has been my path to getting to where I am today. And it took 2 years. 2 years to figure this stuff out. 2 years of diving into the Bible day and night. So it's Swan's path. So it's not necessarily just for me, but just so you know, this is what I've experienced. This is what I've witnessed for myself. And because my channel is called the Black Swan Revelations, I just said this is Swan's path. So you could be a swan as well. You could be a swan if you follow this path. And I think I'm onto something here. I'm very excited to share this. All right. So let's just jump in. And then let me see here. Who's on here? Francis Beckett. Hi, Brother Shane. It's in the sand. Sister in Christ is watching. The footprints in the sand. Yeah, I like that. God bless. This is from Christopher Christ. God bless. Prayers and blessings. Blessed Hope is on. Everyone on the clouds. Okay. I'm just going to jump in because, like I said, I got to take off to go see a movie with my son. He wants me to go see Dune with him. So I'm going to check it out. I was supposed to watch the first one again. But it's like 3 hours long. It's like 3 hours. So we're going to go watch the movie. Putting your flesh in a coma the other day, and I was just curious if that is going far enough. No. I've only scratched the surface. I can go deep, but I want to bring you guys along as well so that you can see it. And when you read the book of Romans, it'll jump out at you. I'm telling you. So it's just kind of one little tiny smidgen. And I'm going to try and dump as much as I can onto you so that you can watch this video over again and then see for yourself. I think that's the idea behind this. We should mortify the flesh. Yeah. And we'll talk about that. So let's just jump into this presentation, and then this, hopefully this will make more sense for you. All right. Swan's path. Why I believe Paul cracked the code of our flesh, and it's all over his epistles. Specifically, it's more predominantly in the book of Romans, which is probably why this is his first letter. And what this means for you. So, why I believe Paul cracked the code of our flesh, and what this means for you. 100% freedom. That's what this will mean. Once you realize the codes that Paul is dropping in the book of Romans, it will be 100% freedom. What does this mean? You'll understand why Christ died for us on the cross. And again, feel free to comment if you think I'm saying something that you've never heard or that's like crazy town. You'll realize why Jesus Christ died on the cross, and you'll appreciate it just a little bit more. And you'll understand God's character in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And you'll understand why we're sealed and why we believe once saved, always saved. You'll understand that. And once you understand that, then it becomes a little bit easier to know how to deal with that stinking flesh. You begin to understand this. So we're going to dive into the pink elephant theory. If you don't know what this is, it's basically, and we've all heard this stuff. The pink elephant theory is basically, don't think of a pink elephant. What happens to us as soon as you say that? You start thinking about a pink elephant. Why? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why that happens and why Paul cracked the code on our flesh like a Rubik's Cube. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. That's like an 80s toy. All right, so I'm going to go through 10 reasons real quick as to why the pink elephant theory, or you can say the pink elephant paradox, if you will, or there's another theory. It's called the pink elephant backwards theory, I believe, but even then they get it wrong. So 10 reasons why the pink elephant theory helps us understand how our flesh works in regards to the book of Romans. Number 1, cognitive suppression. The pink elephant demonstrates that trying to suppress certain thoughts can paradoxically make them more salient in our minds. What does that mean? It means, oh, thank you for that, Eyes on the Cloud. Really appreciate that. It means that we tend to focus on that more. And I think we're all on the same level. We get this. Like pink elephant, okay, you say pink elephant, I'm now thinking about it. But once you understand that that's how our brain works, in order for you to process information in our brain, and maybe this is why in my opening I have the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Once you understand that, then you dive into his word. And when you dive into his word basically starts recalibrating our brain, washing our brain from all this gunk and everything. And now we can think clear. Now we can start thinking crystal clear. We can start accessing a little bit more of our brain and retain information a little bit more, and then allow the Holy Spirit to remind us of everything that Jesus Christ has said, and then also teach us all things. So again, with how our brain works is if you say, don't think, it's you're booting up your computer in your brain, and it's like processing, computing, waiting for the next prompt. So when you say, don't think, pink elephant, it's like, okay, I now know what a pink elephant is. And now it's firing, and it's like, what do you want me to do with this? Now that I know what it is that you're talking about, if you just said don't think, it's an empty prompt. It's getting ready. So your mind is like, okay, what do you not want me to think about? And you just, it's almost like in purgatory, if you will. Not that I believe in purgatory, but I'm not a computer programmer. But your mind, your brain is like a computer, and it's waiting. It's on standby for the next command. So then when you say elephant, pink elephant, it's like, okay, now I got that image. What would you like me to do with it now? Well, I don't want you to think about it. Processing. And now that's all you're thinking, because basically it's like an error that repeats itself until you tell it what to do. That's all it is. It's not a harmful thing. It's not harmful, because I've seen so many people that say, well, what this means is you have sexual desires and you have depressing thoughts and all this kind of stuff. That's what the pink elephant represents. But they miss the big picture, that this is how our brain works. This is how it works. So again, when you say commands, you give yourself little commands, you're starting to fire up all the cylinders on the brain. And it's like, okay, what do you want me to do now? This is probably why The Secret and all this kind of stuff took off, because people are like getting all excited about, word plays and all this kind of stuff. Don't say negative thoughts. Instead, say this and you'll be rich and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I get what they're saying, but it's not scriptural. They're grabbing little pieces and chunks for their own glory, for their own gratification, and they're glorifying their own flesh, like saying, I want a new boat, or I'm not rich. Don't say that. Don't say those things. Or I'm rich, or I want to be rich, or I'm poor, and all this kind of stuff. They're telling you all this stuff, and they're close on the prompts, but they take you down a different pathway. They take you down a way of selfishness, really, at the end of the day. So thanks, Stella. I hope by listening to me you can get all your housework done as you go along. So this is what Paul is onto, is he understood a little bit more how the brain works. So the brain is waiting for a command. You give it a command, and then now it converts that word, pink elephant, into an image, and it's asking you what to do with it now. What do you want to do with it? So if you're thinking, we'll break this home now, we'll bring this a little bit home. If you're thinking, I will not look at porn. It's like, I will not, here's the prompt, look at porn. Okay, well, porn is so loosey-goosey, so the only thing that I could do that relates to porn is access your memory files of you watching porn. And then it'll bring up those, because it's not defined. You never defined it. You just said, I will never watch porn again. Now you get all those images of bad memories of when you're watching porn. Maybe you got kicked out of the home. Maybe you got divorced. Maybe you got whatever. Or I will never drink again. I will never, you got the prompt, your computer's firing up, drink. Oh, it's remembering the bar scene. It's remembering when you had your first taste as a kid of alcohol. All the stuff, because you're not giving it a parameter, and it's putting all this stuff in front of you, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I forgot about that first bottle that I had, that first taste of vodka and orange juice. Oh man, all these images are coming out like it's today. And all of a sudden you're like, I never thought about that before. It's because your brain doesn't know what to do with that information. So when you fire it up by giving it a command not to do something, it has to know what you're talking about. So it's like, okay, I want to obey you. I want to listen to what you're saying. So you say, don't watch porn. Okay, here's the porn. Now what do you want me to do with it? Well, don't watch it. Okay, it's still here. It's still floating around. Don't drink alcohol. Don't smoke. Don't swear. You're not giving it a parameter and what to do with it. So the more you say don't, you're actually focusing on it now. And again, this is what Paul was talking about. The law comes in and says, thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not. You got this, don't steal. Okay, what am I supposed to do with this now? How do I not do it? Because all of a sudden my flesh, which is from the image of Adam, it's broken. So now it gives you every desire. It's like, you know what? I wasn't thinking about stealing, but now that I see don't steal, suddenly I want my friend's truck or whatever it is. It just creeps in there because your mind doesn't know what to do with it. Hopefully that makes sense. And we're going to go a little bit deeper. So salient just means you're focusing on it. So similarly, Romans discusses how the law can actually increase sin and awareness and desire. Remember, the law is not designed to save you. It's to make you aware. So again, it's the same thing as a stop sign. At a four-way stop, it's not good enough to know that there's just a stop sign and then go right through it and then smash into someone. And then when the police shows up and he says, you just smashed through the four-way stop. Did you not know there was 4 stop signs there? And you're like, yeah, I knew that. I knew there were stop signs. He's like, well, why didn't you stop? Well, it's because I knew. I knew they were red signs. I knew it had STOP. And in fact, I took the 4 signs and I put them in the back of my vehicle. They're in the truck. They're right there. Go check them out. I have 4 stop signs. And the officer's like, okay, we're not on the same page here. I'm asking you why you blew through the stop sign. And you're saying, well, I knew it was there. That's how we're treating the law. We're thinking, okay, because it's there, we're saved. Meanwhile, what's happening is the law is making us aware of how far we've actually fallen. And it's all of us. It's the Jews, it's the Gentiles. It makes us aware that we can't fulfill it. That's it. So you could try, but as soon as you try, you're going to fail. So Paul is trying to bring this to fruition by saying, look, because he was aware of the law, he noticed another law was active. So the second reason, so that first one is as soon as you say, give your mind a command, it conjures up an image that you may or may not be able to control because your brain is waiting for you to store that information somewhere and it'll go back into your past to bring it out. So number 2, temptation. Just as attempting not to think about a pink elephant can lead to fixation on the thought, the flesh often fixates on desires and temptations leading to sinful behavior. So because these images are now conjured up because you're trying to stop them, all of a sudden now you're getting a desire and you're like, oh man, this is the very thing that I was avoiding. And all of a sudden my blood is starting to pump. I'm getting flush, all this kind of stuff. I just need a taste of a drug, a drop of alcohol. I got to go whatever. I got to go watch porn, whatever it is, because now it's almost like you're there. That's how our brain works. Number 3, association. The pink elephant theory highlights how our minds make associations which can also influence our fleshly desires and actions. It wakes up our flesh. This is why I say we need to keep our flesh in a coma. Put it to bed, give it a little pillow, give it some nice warm milk and cookies. Go to sleep, flesh. We don't need you all the way up to the time that we die. We don't need our flesh anymore because our flesh is going to lead us away from God. It cannot obey his rules, his laws, nothing. It won't obey it. So we got to leave it in a coma. We got to leave it dead. The reason why I say coma versus dead, it's dead to us because we're alive in Christ, but somehow we resurrect our flesh. And I'm trying to help you keep it dead. Keep it in a coma. Keep it so it doesn't wake up. Keep it so it doesn't get aroused. Number 4, control. Despite our efforts to control our thoughts and actions, the flesh often exerts a powerful influence, as illustrated by the difficulty in suppressing the thoughts of the pink elephant. And you could check out Romans 7:15-20. So number 5, salience. The pink elephant theory underscores how certain thoughts become more salient when we try to avoid them, similar to how fleshly desires can become more prominent when we focus on avoiding them. So if you focus on avoiding the thing that you don't want to do, you're going to be thinking about it more. I promise never to lust after another woman. Boom. Now your mind is going, what do I do with this thought now? Where do I put it? And the more you think about it, all of a sudden you're now succumbing to it. And it could be anything. Could be anything. I don't want to work out anymore. Suddenly you're thinking about the gym. Like it works good and bad. That's my point. But we're doing ourselves a bit of a harm when we're avoiding the very thing that is causing our downfall. As in, if you say prompts like, I will never, your mind doesn't know what to do, what the next thing is about to show up. I will never smoke. Your mind brings that up, brings up cigarettes, brings up tobacco, brings up moments where you had fun on a golf course, whatever it is. And you're like, oh man, I'm trying to break this. Now I can almost taste that cigarette or that cigar. So that's what happens to your brain. It doesn't know what to do with that information, so it stays in front of you. Mental processes. Understanding how our minds process and respond to instructions to not think about something can shed light on the mental processes involved in resisting the flesh. Again, this is what Paul was on to. So 7, attention. And I'm going to come back to the comments. I just want to get through this, and then we could talk about this. So number 7, attention. The pink elephant theory emphasizes the role of attention in amplifying certain thoughts, which can also apply to the fleshly desires that capture our attention. So if you've struggled with something in the past, again, I pick on porn, I pick on smoking, I pick on drinking, I pick on anger, all these things that are related to the flesh. When you're trying to avoid it, you're actually conjuring it back up into your mind as though it just happened. It's fresh. So we're going to talk about how to not do that. But it's important to understand that this isn't wrong. It's just we have to understand how our brain works. So you can use this for good. You could be like, I'm not going to have protein shakes. You're thinking about protein shakes, and they're not harmful, but we tend not to do that. We tend to use this method for stuff that we don't want to do. And we're missing the whole thing that this is how our brain works. You give it a prompt. I don't want to. I shouldn't. I will not. I promise not to. I never again will. I swear I won't. Now the prompt that your brain is waiting for the next thing to finish that command or that prompt. So when you say I won't, I don't, I couldn't, I shouldn't, whatever it is, it's wondering what you're talking about. And once you mention it, it brings it up to the forefront and says, okay, I now understand what you're talking about. Which image are you talking about now specifically? Because all of a sudden you got hours and hours of whatever habits that you're doing. 8, inhibition. Just as trying not to think about a pink elephant requires inability control. Can't say that word. Resisting fleshly desires often requires exercising self-control and restraint. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I think I spent inhibitory control. So it's almost like, how can I say this? It's almost like you become paralyzed by the thought now, and you freeze, or you think about it and all of a sudden time escapes you and you lose track of time. Could be 30 minutes, could be an hour, and you're like, man, I spent so much time thinking about what I don't want to do, and instead of the alternative, which I'll share with you how to fix this. Hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully I'm not losing you on these big words. Some of these big words are big for me. Persistence. Number 9, despite our efforts to suppress certain thoughts or desires, they may persist or even intensify over time, illustrating the persistent nature of the fleshly inclinations. Meaning, the more commands you give in regards to your mind, saying, I swear I will never, ever, ever, ever look lustfully onto a woman again the rest of my life. So help me God. You're going to bring that image, and then you're going to be confused as to why that image came there. And then you're going to beat yourself up going, man, this is the very thing I wanted to conquer, but yet it's there in my head and I can't get rid of it. So I might as well cave in because it's there. For some reason it's there, and that means God's not helping me. So I'm kind of on my own. And you just cave, and then the next day you're like, oh man, why did I do that? I swore I would never do it. Well, it's because you swore you'd never do it. That's the problem. Am I saying, shall we do it then? No, God forbid. No. I'm trying to share with you how this works and then give you the tools afterwards on how to take care of this. So number 10, redemption. Ultimately, just as the pink elephant effect can overcome with intentional redirection of focus, Romans offers hope for overcoming the power of the flesh through the Spirit and the transformative work of Christ. This is why there's no condemnation, folks, because we don't always understand how our brain works. So we're trying to do the right thing. We're like, Lord, I love your word. I love worship. I love going to church, all this kind of stuff. So I promise I'm never going to do this one thing. And boom, it pops up. And all of a sudden you start thinking about it. And it's like, oh man, I just want to be a good Christian. I have a witness and everything. I don't want to swear. I don't want to cuss. I don't want to do this stuff. But the second I say I'm never going to swear again, all of a sudden all these swear words start entering into my mind. Lord, what do I do? I feel like giving up or whatever it is. And then maybe you cuss, swear, whatever, and you beat yourself up. And you have to understand that Jesus Christ knows this. He knows our flesh is out to get us. It's in the image of the first Adam. And we're going to be battling this until the day we die. But there's a way to win the war on a 24-hour basis. There's a way to win the battle, I should say. We won the war, but how do we win this battle on a daily basis? Well, you don't worry about tomorrow. That's one thing. And you don't worry about yesterday. That's another thing. You worry about today. Today. So these parallels between the pink elephant theory and understanding of the flesh of the book of Romans can deepen our insight into human nature and the struggle against the sinful desires. All right, so now we're going to come back. Now we're coming back. All right. Hopefully that made sense. I know we're kind of blowing through this stuff quite a bit. Here's some interesting things. I wrote this down. How to keep your body in a coma. How to keep your flesh in coma. Let's look at this here. So here's some examples of the flesh, okay? You might be aware of most of these. So here's an example. Greed. That's an example of the flesh. Lust, pride, anger, jealousy. So whenever you give those commands, I will never be greedy. Now your brain's not sure what to do with this information. I will never lust. So these are examples of the flesh. So if you put these commands, these words, these codes after the prompt where you say, I will never, now you're setting yourself up. So these are codes that you want to avoid saying when you're doing your I will never. Greed, lust, pride, anger, jealousy, selfishness, gluttony, drunkenness, slander, coveting, hatred. Now, I'm not saying you're not admitting that we've done this. I'm not saying we've never been selfish. I'm not saying we've never been jealous. I'm not saying we've never been angry, but these are the words that we insert after our prompt. I will never overeat again the rest of my life. I swear. Now you're activating the flesh. You're waking your flesh out of its coma. Drunkenness, slander, coveting, hatred, dissension, envy, idolatry, adultery, deceit, rebellion, vanity, malice, sloth, unforgiveness. We say things like, I'll never forgive that person, or I should forgive more, whatever it is. Like, you give yourself these little prompts. Judgmentalism, cowardness, discontentment, vengefulness, manipulation, neglect of family, rivalry, indulgence in sensual pleasures, grumbling, pessimism, materialism, excessive worry, ingratitude, stubbornness, dishonesty, manipulative speech, gossip, exploitation of others, foolishness. So I will never be rich. That's funny. All right. So hopefully you can get what I'm throwing down here. So let me go. Here's this. Look at this. Here's verbal commands that we use on ourselves. And I'm trying to give you some clues and some codes to help you deal with this stuff. Yeah, it could be at our weakest times, but usually it's at our peak. Just after our peak is how the flesh works. If you're in your weakest moment, as in, what would be an example? Let's just say, I don't know, you got separated from your spouse. And you're like, Lord, I just want to enter into you. I just want to press in. I want to get to know you a little bit better. I just had a horrible experience. You're in the valley, and usually that's when we get closest to the Lord. But on a peak, when we're like, oh man, I just got a job promotion. I just got a raise. Everything is looking good. That's when sometimes our flesh can get activated because we got our guards down. And that's when you see people fall. It's not at the bottom. You see people fall when they're at the top. Just look at, what's his name there? Slap guy, Will Smith, when he slapped Chris Rock. He was at his peak. He was about to get his Oscar for Best Actor. He was right here, and then he fell right at the peak. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's not when you're at the bottom. It's when you're at the peak that you have to have your highest guard. Hopefully this makes sense. Yeah, exactly. After a 3-day weekend of a conference of just diving into the Bible, you're like, oh, Lord, thank you. I heard from you so crystal clear. You have a worship conference. You're so just pumped with the worship service. It's at the peak. And then Monday shows up and you're like, man, I'm not feeling the Lord today. I'm not feeling something. And then that's usually when problems happen, is right after the peak. It's not at the bottom. So here's some commands, some verbal commands. You can convert them over to code to tell someone to stop doing something. So think about how you feel when I mention these things. Cease, stop, halt, desist, quit, cease and desist, put an end to it, enough, cut it out, knock it off, cease immediately, refrain, terminate, abstain, discontinue, break off, curb your behavior, put a lid on it, lay off, hold your horses. So these are all considered commands, are encouraging words to get us to stop what it is that we're doing. That's what people say. You just need to stop. You're a Christian, for crying out loud. They might even swear. They're so mad at you. I can't believe you. You call yourself a Christian, you disgusting pig. Why would you fall? Why would you get stuck in porn? You're a Christian. You know better than this. This is what we do. We beat the tar out of each other. It's amazing. This is what we do. So here's words that we have a prompt and we say things like, I won't. You use yourself, and now you're activating your computer program, your mind, and it's getting ready for what you're wanting to do or not do. Because then it knows, do I need to activate my hands, my feet? Like what's this guy up to? It's blind, basically. And it's like, I need to swing the bat. Oh, okay, that makes sense. You're playing baseball right now. You want a home run, whatever. Okay, we're going to focus. We're going to get the eyes focusing and then the ears and all this stuff for balance. Because you said I doesn't know what to do with that. As soon as you say I'm up to bat next. Okay, now it knows what to do. You're giving it prompts. So here's words that we use that cause resistance. Shouldn't, must not, don't. So think of this in the way that we say we're not going to do our addiction anymore. We shouldn't watch porn. We shouldn't lust after women. We shouldn't sleep with women. We shouldn't be angry. Must not, don't, can't, never, always, impossible, forbidden, avoid, prohibited, restraint, not allowed, bad, wrong, it's very bad. I don't want to do bad things. I don't want to do wrong things. I'm so sick of failing, failure, fault, punishment, condemned, error, off limits, proceed, go ahead, move forward. So these are instructions that we give ourselves. So I'm going to now give you some tools or some codes that actually help you deal with your flesh. And what we need to promote a little bit more curiosity. So if something comes into your head and it's like a temptation, you're like, you know what? That's interesting. That's not from the Lord, and you give it to him. That's what I mean by curiosity. You're like, wonder where that came from. It's not the Lord. Boom. So look at this. So ways to help your family, your friends, whatever, if somebody's in addiction or whatever, you can say things like explore, discover, investigate, learn, uncover, delve into, dive deeper, inquire, probe, question, seek, wonder, ponder, examine, research, curious, fascinating, intriguing, puzzling, mysterious. So if somebody's doing something, you can just say, oh, that's kind of puzzling what you're doing right now. Instead of, you need to stop. You're a Christian. You know better. You can just say, oh, that's like somebody says, hey, I watched porn last night and I just feel horrible. And you can be like, oh yeah, that's kind of puzzling. And they'll be like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you are aware that we have the flesh and that gets activated and then you just go down the path of helping this person out. But now you've snapped them out of that condemnation mode and you're walking beside the person and you're saying, that's interesting. Or that's something that we should examine. Let's think about this for a second. So you're walking alongside them, you're not condemning them. Again, it's our flesh that's trying to destroy us. It's not us. We love the Lord. We love Jesus Christ. We understand what he did for us on the cross. We want to read our Bible 24 hours a day. We want to worship him all the time. But when we mention it to someone, they're like, stop, halt, cease and desist. You know better. We beat them over the head instead of going, that's interesting. We should examine that a little bit. We should do a little bit of research on this. What do you think? This is how we should speak to each other. So, again, promoting curiosity helps stabilize your brain so that you're not beating the tar out of yourself. So you could say things like, let's explore these possibilities of how to overcome this. You can ask them open-ended questions. We can investigate the mindset, the novelty. We can experiment. We can use curiosity as a catalyst, as a learning, all this kind of stuff. So this is I'm just sharing ways that we can actually help each other overcome the flesh. And this, instead of the negative commands like halt, cease, stop, like for example, for myself, instead of me saying I will not watch pornography or sleep with any other woman, I will say things instead like, I wonder what things I can do to be closer with my wife. What can I do? Or how can I get to know the Lord a little bit better? How can I honor him today? How can I honor my wife today? What can I do? What can I do? Instead of the negative commands that we give ourselves, because that's what prompts all the thoughts that you don't want to do. So instead, we got to change that, change our programming, and insert other things. So look at this. Tell me how you feel when I say things like this. And imagine saying this to your significant other out of the blue, or your children, maybe somebody at work, maybe somebody you're mentoring, whatever it is. For example, you are appreciated. So if I said something like, Eric, you are appreciated. You're doing great. Or Chris for Christ. Chris, well done. I believe in you. Stella, you're amazing. I'm proud of you. You're valued. You're capable. You make a difference. You're talented. You just go down the list. Just trying to see who else is on here. Scott, you're a valuable member of my channel. Talented. And then for other people, you're making progress. You're an inspiration. You're exceptional. You're important to me. You're making a difference. You're making a positive impact. You're fantastic. You're a star. You're appreciated and valued. So these are words or phrases that can boost someone's confidence, morale, and overall sense of well-being just by saying these words. Obviously, with your little children, it's a little bit more difficult. But go up to them and tell them, no more candy. And watch how they're like, all of a sudden their hand goes towards the candy. It's amazing. It's actually amazing how that happens. It's built into our mind. So tell me, again, I'm just going to read these words here. Tell me if this doesn't bring a smile to your face. Think about this word, and then think about the image it conjures up. When I say this word, think about the word first. Like, imagine it as letters. So I'm going to tell you a word, picture it as letters, and then think about what the image is behind the words. So when I say sunshine, you think of the letters. What's happening now? Are you somewhere else? Are you on a vacation? Are you somewhere where you're watching the sunrise? Laughter. What happened? Are you all of a sudden, is your mind finding memories of when you were laughing with someone. See how your mind works? It takes you somewhere, and all I'm doing is saying a word. Happiness, joy, love, kindness, family, friends, hugs, puppy. Who doesn't smile when they think of the word puppy? Or chocolate. If that doesn't put a smile on your face, I don't know what does. Vacation. You're probably just like, oh man, I need a vacation. So nice to go to Florida on the beach somewhere, or Mexico. Adventure, surprise, success. All of a sudden you might be thinking of some of your successes. Celebration, or my favorite, ice cream. If that doesn't put a smile on your face, I don't know what does. Cake, or a simple thank you. So these are little prompts that bring a smile to someone's face. And it's actually quite amazing that you couldn't control it. It just happened. Like, this is fascinating when you think about it, because now, instead of putting all these commands, negative commands, thanks, Stella, really appreciate that. Instead of, it's very close to reverse psychology. It's like you're substituting the negative programming, where you're like, stop, don't, all this stuff, and you're putting other things in the program, like words that I just mentioned, like you're amazing, you're fantastic, I believe in you, all this kind of stuff. All of a sudden, your mind is going on a different plateau now. It's somewhere else. But if you're saying things like, I will never watch porn, I will never drink another bottle, now your mind is not where you want it to go. It's almost like in purgatory, where it's just sitting here and it's not knowing what you want to do with it, because you're giving this command. You're saying, I will never, and then porn, all of a sudden, boom, I will never think of a pink elephant. Boom, program, the prompts are there ready to go. You can see the cursor blinking. Pink elephant. Okay, I know what a pink elephant is. What do you want me to do with it? Well, I don't want to think about it anymore. It just sits there. Pink elephant isn't bad, but if you think about alcohol, I don't want to drink alcohol again the rest of my life. Prompt, I don't want to. Alcohol. Okay, I know what alcohol is. I'm thinking about when you got drunk on the beach. Maybe you went to a party, you're at a pool hall, you got in a fight, and whatever it is, you had a drink. All of a sudden, you go back to your childhood, your first taste of a beer that your dad gave you. It's like, man, I haven't had a Pilsner for a while. Huh. Wow. And you're just thinking about it, and all of a sudden, it's like, you know what? I think I need to go and get a beer tonight. That's what we do to ourselves. So that's just a little snippet, tiny surface, little tiny drop of what you get in my course, Swan's Path, which starts next Tuesday. Now, I'm going to be dropping things like this, obviously, throughout the week. But if you want the full immersion where we go through this week by week, it's a paid subscription. It's $50. But you can cancel whenever you want. That's the beauty of it. So if you think after a month of this stuff, you're like, Shane, I get it. I got it. Awesome. Maybe you want to be a teacher for my program. Maybe you want to help me out. Or maybe you're just like, yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Cancel your membership. Done. But it's 8 weeks, so it takes 2 months to get through all this stuff. 2 months it takes. So 8 weeks. But again, this is just the surface. And then what we do is we talk about this and we come up with solutions so that you can keep your flesh in a coma. And I have an acronym for it. Let's see if I can find it here. It's so good. Let me see if I can find it here. Look at this. Write this down. Coma. Christ overcomes my appetite. That's what coma. This is why I say we need to keep our flesh in a coma. So in the program, I walk you through this. There's basically 12 paths to keep your flesh in a coma. So we learn how we can put our mortal appetites in a coma, allowing Christ to reign supreme in our lives. We'll be talking about our mortal appetites, recognizing the need for the crucifixion, why Jesus died on the cross, how that frees us, surrendering to Christ's lordship, cultivating spiritual discipline, resisting temptation, and renewing the mind, walking in freedom and victory, embracing self-denial, seeking spiritual nourishment, practicing gratitude. That's a key. Gratitude, being thankful in everything, and contentment, cultivating humility and servanthood, engage in spiritual warfare. We're going to teach you about that as well, and why demons will run away from you so fast when they see you enter a room. They know you have the answer and you're going to kick their derriere. Persevering in faith and endurance. So this is what you'll be learning in it. And again, I'm going to be having little snapshots, but if you can't wait, you're like, oh man, he does a video every once in a while on this channel while he's talking about other stuff. I can't wait. I want a full immersion. Then you just go on to my description on the channel. It's called, there's a button that says join. Scroll down to Swan's Path. And you click on that. And then you can cancel whenever you want. I'm telling you. Some people might want to stick around a little bit more than 2 months. Some people might have enough after a month and they go, I get it. I understand. But my goal is to also drop these this information here for free on this channel as well. But what happens is sometimes people want more and they want to consume it heavily in order to deal with their mess, their gunk, their junk in their life. And maybe they don't have time to wait whenever I drop a video. It's almost going to be the same content. If you're patient enough, over the next year, you're going to get everything here for free. But if you don't have time and you're like, man, I need to get this thing dealt with now. My wife is just like, she's at her wit's end. She's not sure what to do with me. Then maybe that's where you tell her, hey, I've invested in this program called Swan's Path with this guy. He's going to help me through all this. Do you not think your marriage is going to be enhanced because you're taking care of yourself? That's all people want you to do, is take care of yourself, and then you're free to help other people now. Hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully this makes sense. All right, any questions? Any questions? What's interesting too is we'll dive into this again. I'll probably share a video about this here, but also in Swan's Path, we teach you little habits. Like, for example, when I have a cup of coffee downstairs, I'm thinking about reading the Bible. Why? Because I've built a habit of when I have that coffee, I read the Bible. So now, whenever I have a cup of coffee, especially in certain cups that I have, I use my Superman cup pretty much all the time for my devotions. Even if my Bible isn't there on the kitchen table, maybe it's upstairs, as I'm percolating and making coffee, I'm thinking, where's my Bible? Where's my Bible? Because it's a trigger to get me to read this. And I've actually spilt coffee on my Bible. I think I could smell it a little bit. My nose is a little bit stuffy today. But there's triggers that you could do that all of a sudden make you pray for your loved ones. And Paul says, like, we should never cease to pray for each other. We should be always praying for each other throughout the day. So how do you do that? Talk about that. And I'll be sharing, like I said, a lot of stuff I'll be sharing on this channel that we'll be teaching also in Swan's Path. But some people don't like to wait. That's why I charge. If you don't mind waiting, watch here, subscribe here. You're going to get more golden nuggets. Hopefully this makes sense to you. Any questions before I go and go watch Dune? Any questions? Does this make sense? Have you heard this taught anywhere else? Because if so, let me know. I haven't seen it taught anywhere else. Hints, types, and shadows, I've heard people say, like talking about how to deal with the flesh. But it's usually from a defeatist mentality, like, hey, we're just human. We're just keeping watch. We're fortifying until he comes. And, and then we just show up in heaven and the Lord's like, did you not read Romans? Like, did you not read it? Did you not watch Black Swan Revelations where Shane was trying to teach you also how to deal with your flesh because he knows how to deal with his flesh? Did you not watch that? Did you not watch some of these other channels? We just get beat up. We get pistol whipped on a daily basis and we don't know why. And I'm trying to tell you, this is why we're getting pistol whipped. This is why we're getting defeated by the enemy. It's because we're not reading his word. And then we walk out. We haven't looked at the manual. We haven't looked at the blueprint. We haven't looked at the map. And we're just getting hammered out there in the world. And non-Christians are looking at us and blaspheming the name of the Lord because of us. We're walking around going, yeah, I'm saved, but I still cuss, swear, whatever. Do whatever I want because I'm free in Christ. Meanwhile, that freedom is supposed to lead us to Christ and lead others to Christ, not away from Christ because of our freedom. So once again, once you realize what Jesus Christ did for us on the cross, now we're married to him. We're not married to our flesh, meaning we're not legally bound to our flesh. Just like a woman, when a woman is married to a husband, if she sleeps with someone else, she's called an adulteress. But if her husband dies, she's not legally bound. And now she can marry another legally. And she's blessed. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully this makes sense. I'm just seeing if this makes sense to you, to my audience. Pomfar. I remember Pomfar, I think. Yeah, Spock had a tough time with that. Was that when he was, now you're talking to a Trekkian. Was that when Spock, all of a sudden, it's almost like the salmon where they had to return where they spawned. Spock had to go back to Vulcan. And he was losing his mind because all of a sudden his flesh was taking over. His flesh knew that, hey, he's got to get back to Vulcan or whatever it is to mate with someone and have a wife. And Spock, because he's half Vulcan, was, no, this is crazy. I'm actually going insane right now. It's half Vulcan, half human. It's a very interesting character study on Spock. But he hated himself for it. He hated himself for his humanity, which is his flesh, that was driving him to be primitive, to kill his captain, all this kind of stuff. And Spock was wrestling with this in his mind. It's actually a good study on that one. See, I knew Star Trek was good. I knew it was good. Anything else here before I go? Right out of Romans, yeah. It's interesting, right? Does this make sense? Again, like I'm asking the question because sometimes I wrestle with The idea that I'm the only one, am I something special, whatever, that kind of stuff. And then I'm like, well, it's probably because I've just been consuming so much of his word that now I'm seeing things that I never saw before. And it could come across as cocky, arrogant, conceited, all this kind of stuff. And I don't want to come across that way, but I'm very excited as to what I uncovered. Very excited. And I look around and I go, it feels like I'm the only one. That's a lonely place to be like in a 1 percentile. I feel like it, but I think you guys are getting what I'm dropping here so that I don't feel alone on this. And I don't think it's crazy. Again, I'm just scratching a bit of the surface here. We can go way deeper. But imagine walking around and going, you mean I can actually control my thoughts? I don't have to cuss and swear and think about all this crazy stuff? You mean I can actually have a clear mind? Yes, you can. You can have a clear mind. And now what happens is if a rando thought comes into your head, it gets caught in the net. Because I have so much scripture in my head, it just gets stuck. I might not even be looking for it. It gets stuck. And I'm like, oh yeah, what's this? Here you go, Lord. That's not from you. And you give it to him. You don't just throw it away, you give it to him. And he destroys it. So this is what we have to deal with, obviously, to the day we die. We get that. We get that. Nobody's perfect. We make mistakes. But if you know how to avoid those mistakes, isn't that worth something to you? To go, oh, wow, you mean there's something on the other side? Yeah, there's freedom. And really, if you want that freedom, just read the book of Romans over and over again. Try it for 30 days. You don't even have to take my program. Don't take it if you don't want it. Just read the book of Romans for 30 days every day, preferably the King James, because that's what worked for me. I'm giving you what has worked for me, and I think it'll work for you. If you saturate your mind, oversaturate your mind with his word, I think good things happen. I think that's common sense. I'm not saying anything crazy. Imagine reading the Bible for 8 to 10 hours a day. That does not hurt you. You might not eat. Your family might not like you too much, but maybe they'll like you more. I don't know. It's kind of a mix because then all of a sudden you're walking around free and you're like, you know what? I'm going to clean out the garage today. You know what? I'm going to go call up a buddy and I'm going to take him out for coffee. You know what? I feel like we should be tithing to our church. You know what? I feel like we should support some mission. You know what? Because your mind is now clear to do our vocation, which is to edify the church and build up the body and to occupy until he returns. Just occupy. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I say hopefully a lot. Cool. Are we cool? Thanks again, Stella. Appreciate that. Just donated $10. Thank you for that. That was awesome. That was so awesome. Appreciate that. Eyes on the Cloud donated $10 as well. Thank you. Appreciate that. Like, man, that is so awesome. You guys are awesome. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. We had a good Bible study this morning. I'm leading a Bible study with the men from our church. There's 5 guys this morning. And I got to take off pretty soon. But we're talking about how to deal with the flesh. And it was amazing because we all struggle with the same things. That's what's amazing. And Paul gives us the code to crack it, to crack the flesh. And it was a good Bible study. It was pretty good. So this is what I'm going to be doing every Thursday morning. I drive into Calgary, meet with some guys. Right now, there's only 5 of us. It's a very intimate setting. We have coffee. I brought some muffins. And we sat down and we just shared, just talked. How can we master the flesh? What can we do? What can we do? So it was good. It was fun. It's fun. Fun time. Tuesday at 6:30. So I didn't get any sleep last night because not that I don't get up early in the morning. I sleep till 5 o'clock in the morning. I just get up after 9 years of driving truck. I just wake up anyway. But when I have an appointment that's early in the morning, I don't sleep unless I set my alarm. So I had to set my alarm. Normally I don't set my alarm because I get up at 5, but I had to set my alarm and I didn't sleep. That's what I'm talking about with your flesh. It's crazy, man. I wanted to be at the men's study. I didn't want to be late. And then all night you're tossing and turning and tossing and turning because you're thinking about it. Don't be late. Don't be late. I wasn't late, but I'm tired. I didn't get a good night's sleep last night because I was wondering, what do you want me to talk about, Lord? What do you want me to talk about? What can I share? And then as soon as the guys showed up, boom, it was there. And I think we had a great Bible study this morning. So it's kind of cool. Kind of cool. Yeah. This is why I dread when people say, "Hey, can you pick me up from the airport at 6:30 in the morning?" I'm like, sure, even though I know I'm not going to sleep. Why? Because I don't want to be late. I don't want to let them down. I don't want to drop people off at the airport because they'll miss their flight, because I slept in, whatever it is. But if I don't have any plans, I'll be up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, bright as a bushy tail, just like, oh yeah. It's so funny how that works. It's crazy. Anyways, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate you so much. And I will see you in another video. I encourage you to watch this again. Go through it with some notes and stuff. I went a little bit fast, but hopefully this makes sense to you even tomorrow when you wake up and you're like, what was Shane talking about? And you watch it again. See you later, guys.